Moments. All right, starting on the stew pot. This is with my special guest, Roni, Nicole. I am going to discuss this with you. I'm going to do a countdown here in a moment, but let me just do this real quick. Let me just make sure. I never keep track of the number of episodes that I have. For some reason, I'm going to lose count. I am totally going to lose count. All right, you were going to be episode number 8. Okay, episode number 8. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Stew Pot, episode number 8. Thank you for joining us. It is a wonderful day today here in Ohio where I'm at, and I'm going to be talking to a longtime friend. I've known him for about 7 years now. You had the distinguished honor of being the first female wrestler, the first female guest on this podcast. So you're somebody I've known for a long time. I'm very glad to have you. It's great to see you. You look great, by the way. Roni, Nicole, thank you. Hey, how you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. It's been a while since we've seen each other in Zoom life or Skype life or real life. So, it's good to see you. I hope the fam's good.
They're great. My wife's doing fantastic. I remember when she came down and she actually trained a little bit when I was helping training. And she's like,
intense.
What was that?
That was intense.
I've heard that. I've heard that about me as a teacher or as a workout partner in general, that it's intense. Well, you tell me this. Who first trained you? When did you start and who first trained you? Because I wasn't
originally. It was Nightstick Eddie Brown and Tony Hangtime James in Fayetteville. And so that was 2010, 11, and a little bit of 12. But it was very sporadic. The guy who was trying to start an all-female wrestling promotion was just picking up girls and seeing who was pretty much going to hang in and be able to do it. And I was the only girl who stuck with it. And I guess he realized that wrestling isn't the money pot that he thought it was going to be. So I ended up having to take a break from training. And so you met me later when I started training with CW and Chili and Dan down in Wilson Mills. And then I don't actually know how you got linked up with Dan, but then we linked up and you started training me.
Yeah, with Dan, I think I knew him. I met him through shows in North Carolina because when I first came down. Actually, I met Count Grog at Gouge Wrestling. He runs the Gouge Championship Wrestling, and he's out of Raleigh. I met him on a few shows before, and I was interviewing for a position in my company to relocate to North Carolina, and I think I went down there and I wrestled one show and I got over. It worked well because I worked with Otto Schwanz, which that was an interesting experience. And then that was this is around 2011. And then as soon as I relocated with then girlfriend, now she's my wife, Christine, then I started wrestling for Gouge. And that's how I met Dan, because I started getting on other shows. Just once I went down and started working, I started networking. And that's how I met Dan. And Dan's like, hey, you want to come help train my guys in the barn? Plus, him and Johnny Lightning were friends, I think, or they were close, I guess, because they talk a lot. Because one thing that he called, it was a compliment because he called Johnny Lightning because I was working with his students, and he was just like, yeah, who knows what he's doing. And then once they went over the list of the guys that I worked, they're like, oh, okay, Mike West was another one that did the same thing. He ran shows, and there's a guy, he's not living anymore. He's Donnie Steamboat. You remember him?
Yeah, I think he passed away a couple years ago.
Yeah. So I worked for him too. Who's that?
I thought he had cancer.
I think so. Some sort of lymphoma, if I'm not mistaken. So it was a sad story with him. But so that's what, because I remember it was on Facebook Messenger, and it was around 2013. It was right after I got married. And we've met. I think we've met at a few shows. And where I lived and where you lived was really close. So it made sense. And I just was like, hey. So plus I've trained female wrestlers before, so it wasn't a big deal. So I just made sure I let my wife know, hey, I'm picking up Roni, and she came with us. I said, "You want to come?" She wanted to try it, and she didn't like it. It's not for everybody.
Right. It isn't. It isn't. So, but it was fun to have her there.
Yeah, it was great. Oh, she's great. Yeah. One of the things I noticed about you was you were very enthusiastic. You were very high energy and you wanted to do it. And I mean that as a compliment. What got you interested in pro wrestling?
I mean, I always wanted to be a wrestler, but that wasn't something that in my family or in the environment that I grew up in that you would say. So, so that wasn't something that I was really sharing with people, but it was something that was very close to my heart because it combined a lot of things that I was interested in. All of the parts that go into wrestling, the amateur grappling, the pageantry, theater, costume design, like all of the things, storytelling, psychology, like all of that stuff really attracted me because I like all of those things. And this was showcasing all of those things just in a really athletic and in sometimes brutal way. And so it was something that I kept kind of, as my secret love because it was something that I could share with people who got it for the same reasons I did, because it wasn't about winning and losing in the way that it is now, so to speak. It was more about the storytelling and, recounting things that happened because it led to this amazing conclusion or this horrible conclusion or, whatever the blow off was. So I think I just got that bug like everybody, and it's never left. So
there's so many of us. There's so many of us. Right. I mean, I'm the same way. It almost breaks my heart to sometimes watch the wrestling that's on TV today because I remember what I grew up with. And I'm saying that just like, hey, could you, I mean, oh my God, it kills me. You mentioned something about the storytelling and the psychology. Now, did you have any favorites that you liked before you got into the business? Is there anybody that you admired?
Oh gosh. I'm trying to not give all of the same answers that I've given over the years or the ones that everybody gives.
Mine was Magnum TA. I love Magnum.
I honestly wasn't ever like a huge Magnum TA fan. I'm not gonna lie.
You weren't?
But I mean, his body of work is awesome. Yeah, but I wasn't ever like, yeah, Magnum or Boom. I just, he just wasn't really my cup of tea. I love Dusty.
Of course.
Oren, some British guys, Johnny Saint. Who else? Eddie and Malenko. Aja Kong, Manami Toyota for sure.
Yeah.
So
what about Medusa Michelli?
I did like Medusa, yeah, and I feel like she's one of those people who hopefully will still get some roses while there's time. We have a habit of giving people their credit when it's way too late. But there was a lot of people who were the architectures of women's wrestling that really don't get as much shine, in my opinion, as they should have. And she's definitely one of those people.
Well, there's people, you can go to female wrestlers now, depending on who you talk to, they might never know who Mildred Burke was. Mildred Burke was a legit. I remember because there was an interview that Moolah did, and she said she could beat Mildred Burke. I said, Mildred Burke would have kicked her ass. Oh my God, she would have killed her. I'm like, dear Lord. I'm just going, no.
That was a different time where, if it came down to it, it would easily become a shoot. But nowadays you have more talk about that than anything else that I have seen.
That would equate Ric Flair saying he could take Lou Thesz in a shoot. That's basically how I'd equate it. And Ric Flair couldn't do it.
Right.
He would even admit to it. Because I guess there was
categories of wrestling.
Yeah, you're talking it's different. Ric Flair was a great performer, a great showman, great promo. The guy he made it look easy to do an hour-long match. He just made it look easy. And I'm not taking anything away from Flair. However, Lou Thesz was legit. Mildred Burke was legit. Moolah was really good as a female wrestler. She was fantastic. and she was, but Mildred Burke was legit. That's the way it works. The thing I was going to ask you about, you obviously sitting here, we're still kind of quarantined, but Ohio's opening up a little bit, North Carolina's opening up a little bit now. Did you ever get a chance to watch the Netflix series Glow?
I actually have not watched Glow, so I'm familiar with the story, and I remember the old Glow.
Okay, that's what I was going to get to. Okay, so I watched the new series, and I just shook my head.
Haven't watched. I know I should give it a chance, but I just I'm not too sure.
Are you choosing not to because of what it did to female wrestling? Weird women's wrestling, is that why, or do you just haven't gotten to it?
I generally no longer make those decisions because any and everything affects female wrestling in some way. So if I was constantly making that decision, I would never be able to enjoy anything.
Okay.
But I just kind of, that was one thing that was very pure to me because, obviously it came on when I was little. And so I wasn't aware of it then. But when I really discovered it as I got older, it became one of those things that I was like, wow, this was really the first time that no matter how campy and no matter how ridiculous some of this was, they were really trying to shine a spotlight on women in wrestling.
Yeah.
And I felt like that was really special and unique, And so I don't really want to watch the new Glow and kind of lose that feeling just yet. I'm not saying I'm never going to watch it. It's just I like the way that the old Glow makes me feel and those memories I have. And then I don't know if you remember Masters of Ring Entertainment when they used to run shows out in Wilmington and Charlie Armstrong. Well, they did a convention with all women, and they had women, like some of the original Glow women, come. And it was just really cool to get and sit and talk with these women and listen to their journeys and, experience with them the passing of the torch, so to speak, to that group of us that was there. And it was just really special and something that I'll always link, those two things together. But I will watch. Did you like it? Like you said you watched it. Did you enjoy it?
It's a comedy, and there's things that I didn't like. There's things that I did like. Actually, it was interesting to see Carlito and Chavo in it. Then I'm not going to talk about when they were in one of the seasons, and they're like bumping and selling for him, and I'm going, okay. I just want to, how I am about that. I'm like, the intergender stuff I can't stand.
Yeah,
I know. And that bothered me. But the thing is Moolah said that version of female wrestling killed female wrestling for a decade. And because it wasn't until like the late 90s when WWF started bringing female wrestling back, because problem was, and even Cornette said this, and I agree with him on it, they tried to ride the Sable train with the Attitude Era, and Sable couldn't wrestle. She could barely, she just had a tremendous look. That was it. But then they had people that were like, Ivory was there. She's really good. Jackie, who was really good. Jazz. Luna Vachon. Oh man, she's excellent. I mean, she's a very good female wrestler. Meanwhile, they have to carry her, because she looked the prettiest. So it was pretty dumb. But now today, it's a lot more athletic. It's a lot more athletic based. Like I see a lot of female wrestlers that are on there now that really know what they're doing. It's good. I mean, I said, if you go out there and you put on, because the way I taught you was to make it look realistic. Don't worry about that. You know what I mean? Show the fight. So and I think people noticed that when you started doing it. So at least I hope so. Tell me about the time, like, what was your first match?
My first match was in Thomasville, I think. And I don't think the promotion exists anymore. I'm sure those guys are still around, but I haven't seen anything from them.
Where were you at?
Thomasville,
North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So I want to say that's near Gibsonville, Greensboro-ish.
Okay.
I think out that way. And I was riding at this time. I started riding and traveling with another wrestler who trained down with Dan, and he was on the show and asked me if I wanted to go. And of course, that's how you learn. So I hopped in the car. I had no gear, or anything because this was just out of training. So we go to the show, and I remember I didn't see the ring or anything. And then we came back around, and the ring was set up outside. And they were trying to figure out how to stabilize the ring on cinder blocks. Yeah, that was, and so he walks in and, shake hands, whatever. And the promoter asked me if I wanted, Carlos was his name. He asked me if I wanted to wrestle. And I was like, what are you talking about? And I looked at the wrestler I rode with, and he was like, yeah, you're ready. You can, just keep it simple. You know what you're doing. And so they were like, yeah, we need, another match. Somebody's not going to be here. Do you want to do it? And I was like, okay. And I had no gear. So I was just in like my little training get up and my wrestling shoes. And I remember coming out to Outcast So Fresh and So Clean. And I wrestled this old dude in a hood. And his name was Shinobi. Yeah. I actually tell this story on my storytelling. I don't have a podcast. I just tell little stories. And this was my very first one. But yeah, enter Shinobi. And I did 5 moves and got the pin and got the win and got out of there.
Get just in and out.
In and out. And, they say that you will always remember your first match. And I literally do. I remember it like it was yesterday. Like it's just frozen in my mind because I just remember being so scared and like.
What year was that? 2011, 2010?
No. Oh yeah, I guess that was 2011. So yeah, because I didn't have another match for a long time after that.
Yeah.
Because I really wasn't ready to work. You know what I mean? Like I just kind of got thrown into something because I was riding. But
did the crowd react to what you were doing?
Yeah, they did, and I was really surprised that they were like chanting for me and stuff, and because I didn't know, what I was doing, and I was trying to act like a tough, like like a badass, but I wasn't feeling that way at all. So it was definitely, I don't know, but that feeling that wrestlers had tried to explain to me, like that adrenaline, that kind of high, I felt that.
Rush. It's a rush.
Yeah. And I definitely was like, oh, I could super get used to this. So it wasn't until after I had started working with you that I had another match. So I had like some time in between my first 2 matches. And then I started.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And then I started working down at Danger Zone. So how that went.
Is that with Viper?
Yeah.
Okay. Is he still running?
I think he is. A year or 2 ago, I saw that they were looking for talent and they wanted people to send their resumes so that they could get them the international exposure that Viper had. So.
Yeah, I got along with them. But I remember, I remember like when I first won the NWA national belt, you came with me to the Smoky Mountain NWA show. Not the Smoky Mountain Wrestling, it's NWA Smoky Mountain. And that was, God, I forgot the promoter's name. But I said, hey, I kind of arranged it because I just won the national belt, so I wanted to defend the title. What's that? Tony Gibbons. Tony Gibbons. Mm-hmm. So we went to, I think it was Kingsport, Tennessee. So we went to Tennessee, and I defended my belt against Lance Erickson. And you happened to be there, and Jesse Bell Smothers was there, so you ended up working. Was that your next match?
Because Jesse was no, I had a few at Danger Zone before that, but that's the one that I count because Jesse taught me a lot. She was the first female vet because there were not girls around during that time.
Well, her father is Tracy, so it's like, her dad was my ECW tryout match in '97.
She's incredible. And I'm really glad that she's kicking ass and, being her nasty Southern Belle self. But
it was just so funny, though, because I was like, well, I didn't know who she was. And I'm like, well, who's your dad? She's like she was surprised. It's Tracy Smothers. I'm like, oh, my God, tell him I said hi. I was like, I haven't talked to Tracy in so long. And, that's funny.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That was a good time.
It was a really good show. I learned a lot from her. She taught me the female side of wrestling, which I really was missing, and which other female wrestlers had told me, that I was going to need to learn how to work that style, and I really didn't get what they meant until I worked with Jessie. And so, I owe a lot of that to her because she was definitely very gracious and very kind. And that's something that I'm, trying to pass forward as I learn more and become more veteran in the business, is being patient and kind when people are actually genuinely interested in learning and wanting to, better the business. So
I always believe
I was very specific. Was
it being patient and kind?
No, about being very specific with helping people who are actually interested in learning.
Right.
So,
well, there's people that I've helped and I've trained and I've worked with. I mean, you learned a lot from Chris, from C.W. Anderson. You learned from me. You learned from Chili Willie. We all had our own experiences and our own ways of doing things. So, Chris, I had a really good match with Chris, and God, I can't remember where it was. I want to say Goldsboro, North Carolina. I want to say there. But him and I, it was for
Kinston.
What's that?
Was it Goldsboro or was it Kinston?
It might have been Kinston. It was for the guy that ran a lot in Havelock. I was their champion when I got fired after I slapped the guy. Yeah,
Marconi.
Yeah, Marconi. Yeah, the David Schultz. Well, let me ask you this, because you're native North Carolina, right? You were born in North Carolina.
Native Texan.
You're Texan. Okay. So when did you move to North Carolina?
Yeah. We were back and forth from the time that I was in kindergarten to 5th grade. My grandfather had Alzheimer's, so my mom was living there and my other family really wasn't available, so she was actually commuting back and forth. So we actually officially moved here when I was in middle school. Yeah, it was, a lot.
You moved around a lot as a child. Well, the reason why I asked that was because, and I'm not, when I make this point, I want people to understand, I'm not saying I'm Michael Jordan, okay? But I watched The Last Dance, and Michael Jordan grew up in Wilmington, North Carolina, and he went to the University of North Carolina, won a national championship, and he went on to having the greatest NBA career anybody could ask for with the Chicago Bulls. And I think the reason why that documentary came out, the last 2 parts are airing tonight on ESPN. I watched the first 8. The reason why they did was because there's a group of younger people, sports fans today, that didn't experience him in the 90s, or they couldn't remember him.
Right.
So comparing him to LeBron, you can't, because he was here and LeBron was like here. I mean, that's how much better he was. And the thing that I picked up on, and I'm not saying I'm Michael Jordan, but there's a certain mentality and drive that you have to be a champion, to be the best at what you're doing. You heard how intense he was in practices with the team.
Yeah.
You heard how you mentioned this before. When I train or I'm working with you, it's intense. I bring it. I'm ready to go. That's why some people are like, what the fuck? Like when they see me do that, it's like, holy shit, he's crazy. That's it. That's my mentality. That's how I approach it. And you want to tell the story, like when you realized why I was the way I was? You want to tell me?
I'll let you can tell it. I mean, I definitely realized why you were the way you were before that, Lou. But
that's when you told me. I'm not sure when you realized it.
And you're a very intentioned individual, so there's no point where it's not, you don't demonstrate that you're going to back up what you say you're going to do, or you're going to follow through with your actions. So that's something that's very evident in the type of person you are, that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with training. So that's what I mean when I say that I knew that ahead of time, because that's just the type of person that you are. And you see that through your actions, through your interactions with people, through the things that you do. But I think in the business aspect, there was a moment, but I think you should tell the story.
What are you talking about? The Marconi story, or the story when I was on this? When I happened to be at the show that you were wrestling on.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, because I remember I watched the match, and it was a Gouge show after I left Gouge, and I'm not going to go into the details of why I left Gouge. That's a whole other podcast. But I was there with Christina, I think. Is that right? Now you're laughing. I love it. uh, and you had a match with, I don't remember her name. I never seen her before, never heard of her, but she did a lot of roller derbies. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, Jen Stern Smith.
Yeah, and you made that match watchable. I remember it was just she wasn't trained. She didn't know what she was doing, and you went into protect mode. I remember training you how to do that. You started, okay, I'm protecting myself. This is what I want to make sure I got to make sure. And then I think afterwards I came up to you and I didn't really say anything to you. I just kind of went, "How do you feel?" Something like that, open ended. Let it out, and you went, "Now I know why you are the way you are." And he walked away. And I was like, "Okay, that makes sense." Kind of washed my hands of it, and walked away.
And a lot of my career has been that, and I attribute that on-off switch to you, because there have been times where I have had to take control and I was not supposed to be in control. I've had to take control because someone straight up lied to me about their training, and I'm in there with a backyarder. So there have been a lot of times where I've had to go into that mode of protect myself and the other person, even if it's their own peril and they're the ones who caused it.
Right.
But it's my job to make sure that we both walk away from the match. So I really attribute that to you, because I understood why you were so hard and why you wanted to make sure I knew what I was doing, because there were going to be plenty of moments and times where there were people who did not, and I was going to have to be the one to figure. And I had a moment recently where I know that if we had still been in the ring, you might have given me a little short arm. I was wrestling a girl where she was trained, you would think that she knew what she was doing. I don't want to say the name of the promotion. But with the people that were there, they have a reputation and a history for being able to train people. Okay. And so she didn't want to do business from the beginning. Her whole attitude was, I'm the new girl here. I'm the only female here. I'm the hottest one here. That's what I'm about. And you know me, it's not what I'm about. So we were already having a few clashes that were not really wrestling related. And I told her, I got the business from the promoter. And I told her, this is what the business is. So let's go ahead and do this, for the finish. And then we can kind of walk it, because we didn't have that much time. And I didn't really think we needed to do a whole bunch of crazy stuff, because it was a very simple, he'll get the baby over. We didn't have a story. I was a new person coming in. There wasn't really anything to build upon. So this was just going to be your basic get in, get out, make the baby look good. But she didn't want to do that. And she didn't want to walk and talk. And she ran around the locker room telling every person how nervous she was and how scared she was, because we weren't planning every little detail. And I'm speaking to
That's perfect. That's perfect.
Listen, I'm gonna, when I tell you who all the people are in this story off camera, you're gonna laugh even harder. But I go to one of the head trainers who I have a very good relationship with, and I'm like, I don't want to make any waves. Everyone always says I'm so difficult to work with anyway. I just want to do a good job and do the business, but I don't want to plan 85 years worth of material that likely will not happen. And he's like, yeah, just call the finish, do it this way, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, right, what I said. Okay, great. Glad to know I've got the approval of one of the leading vets in here. So we finally end up planning some things out, just a few things to make her comfortable. We go out there, we get to the hope spot, and she doesn't kick out.
The hope spot, meaning, wait a second. I want to make sure you were the face.
I was the heel.
through the heel, and she was a babyface. She did a hope spot, and she doesn't kick out. I mean, you covered her?
So the hope spot was the sunset flip where I dropped down on her chest,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then she's supposed to kick out of that big, powerful baby comeback.
Never did.
So I am so shocked because I make myself lighter, when I know it's time. I know this is kind of Caitlin kayfabe, but I make myself able to be moved. I'm a big girl. Okay, if I don't want you to move me, you're not going to move me. But so I make sure that in positions where it is challenging to move me, that you have a leeway. She didn't move. And so I was so shocked. I really didn't know what to do. I was told by the promoter that I should have found a way to put her back on top as the baby, so that the business still got done. But I honestly was genuinely so shocked that this individual decided they just weren't going to kick out this early in the match and not get, an opportunity to have an actual back. So the best part was when she goes to the back and tells the head trainer that she couldn't kick out because I was too heavy, and he shut it down immediately. And he was like, "You didn't even try. What are you talking about?" And I was like, well, I hope this is not indicative of a subset of new generation of wrestler, because that's not great for the future of wrestling, if so.
No, probably not. Probably not. Now, how long ago did this happen? Was I still in North Carolina? I've been back for almost 4 years.
No, you were back up there, but this was pre-corona, so sometime last year.
Okay. So yeah. that's funny.
So I thank you and CW and Chili and Eddie and Tony and like all the old school guys who poured into me. That knowledge has followed me my entire career. I've never been in a situation where I haven't been able to use something that I was taught. And I really am grateful that I was able to have such a hodgepodge of people who knew so much. I remember telling that story about you and Chili just chaining. I told it to a guy who I know, Marcel Kane. I don't think you haven't met him, but he met Chili, and I was telling him about how you guys just got in the ring and started chaining around, and you just went and you didn't talk, and it was really natural, and you didn't call anything, and I just remember being in awe of what we do and how easy you guys made it look, and how you guys were communicating.
Years of training for the two of us. Yeah, to get the people up to speed, what you're talking about, I'm just going to let people that are knowing. I went to the training center. I never met Willie. Never met him. But we knew of each other, and we wanted to meet each other. And he was so happy to be there. I said, man, I want to work with you. Okay, come on, let's get in the ring. And we just locked up, and we went. So it was just two former ECW guys. He was there after I left and went back to school. We locked up. We went, and I remember like you were there and a couple of other students were there and Dan was there. And it was just kind of like, they were just kind of in awe. Like, this is like a WWE quality match. We're watching two of these guys go back and forth. This is something I would pay to see on TV or pay for. Not saying it was like, you know what I mean. You know what I mean? They said they couldn't believe the quality that we were putting together by just locking up and going. I said, this is old school. This is what they used to do.
And the realism was there. That's something that's really not often brought. And then when you have these wrestlers that bring it, like Shane Taylor, you know what I mean? Like myself, like, when you have people who actually add realism into the match, that's not anything different than what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to show the fight. We're supposed to show the story. So let's show the story. So, and I think the best part of that is that I got to do that in Japan. Over here, I've had to adjust quite a bit, but in Japan, you always show the fight, you always make contact, and you always bring it because you're fighting for that respect and that understanding, and you're showing that showmanship and sportsmanship in every match. So, I feel lucky that I at least got to get it out there. And now I'm not getting to get anything out, because of the stay at home, but
yeah, we're all stuck at home. I was just joking with my wife. It's a good thing. Well, this is true. We're not going to have any more kids because I had the surgery. So that's a good thing because there could be all these corona babies popping up 9-10 months from now all across the country. There's going to be like a corona boom. It's probably going to happen. Nothing else to do. But yeah, that was an interesting story too. My vasectomy. I might tell it on a podcast. It was an outpatient surgery. It was right after Callista was born. Within 4 months, I said, "Well, we're not having any more. Our deductible's used up. We might as well do it this year." so we did it, and at the Cleveland Clinic. Yeah. So wow. You'd be surprised. Most guys freak out over that. It didn't bother me. Yeah, I wasn't worried about it at all. I was like, it's a standard procedure. So, but the doctor was funny because it's outpatient. He walks in and he's like, "So we're here to do a vasectomy." I am on the table, naked from the waist down. and I just looked. I said, "This would be awkward if you were taking out my wisdom teeth, wouldn't it?" He just started laughing because I like you. It was funny. He was cool. He was funny about that. But it was, because we basically talked Game of Thrones the whole time. He was talking about, because I started asking him these questions. Well, for instance, like, what is a eunuch versus the army of the Unsullied? If people that don't follow Game of Thrones, I don't know what I'm talking about. The one character that was a complete eunuch, which was the bald-headed guy?
I forgot his.
Yes, him, and then the army of the Unsullied. Well, the army, he was talking about it because I said, a eunuch is basically somebody he said it's just the testicles are removed, but not the whole, not everything. But he said there's been times when they've had to do that. And I said, well, how do they urinate? He goes, oh, there's a tube. They can still urinate. They'd squat down and there's a tube. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm starting to ask all these questions. I'm thinking in my mind, like, how would suck if that would happen. But he said he's had to do that. It's just like, yeah. So but there's other stories too. When guys that go in for a vasectomy, a lot of times they'll be ready and they'll be prepped on the table. They'll go out. The nurse will go get the doctor. When they come back, the guy's gone. He just grabs the stuff and he leaves. Like, you can't go through with it. And I'm like I'm here. Why not? I mean,
I'm here. Let's do this.
Yeah, let's do this. I mean, yeah. Well, the interesting part was because you have to do a counseling session with the doctor and everything else, and they examine you and everything else before you do it. And they were asking me these questions like, wow. I said, well, at the time I was 44. So I said, I just turned 44. I just had my second child. We don't want any more. So they went, okay, no problem. Because I guess there's times that young men come in their early 20s and they won't do it.
Oh, wow.
If you want to come in at your early 20s, they won't do it. So I know I just kind of really digressed here and talked about vasectomies, but it is a lot easier for the male to be fixed than it is for the female to get her tubes tied. So I was good in 5 days. I was fine. So, and that was it. But yeah, it's always interesting to hear these stories from doctors and talk Game of Thrones, because you and I talk Game of Thrones all the time. So I had all these questions about this stuff. Yeah. What did you think of the last season?
I'm not caught up, so don't spoil it for me.
Okay. Wow, you haven't caught up yet? It's been over a year. Wow. What have you done? What have you been doing through this whole thing?
Living life, Lou.
Got this whole pandemic. We're stuck in our houses. Catch up on Game of Thrones.
Listen, no, I don't get to be stuck. I'm still considered essential. Well, at least until last week. So I was working at a daycare, and slash preschool. So we're officially shut down though as of last week. So I've not actually been in home. Yeah, because it was a daycare and preschool for essential workers. So.
Okay. Also, basically, because people are going back now, I think. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because Ohio's starting to open up. The gyms open up next week, and the DMV opens up because we bought a car. We got a really good deal on a car. Because this thing was sitting there for 2 months, and I was like, well, we're bringing cash. Come on in. So it was funny. So yeah, we got a really good deal on a car. So it's always helpful. So yeah, right now, I remember you probably remember back when Christine and I were trying to start the family. Now we have 2, and that one is Isabella, the oldest one. She's going to be starting kindergarten this fall.
Insane. Yeah. I remember when she was just born and she had tiny silky hair and Christine was holding her And
Mm-hmm.
I remember that you had just hung up the boots and you had just finished up like the last couple matches that you were going to do. And like, she was just a baby. It was just the three of them. And then Callista comes and I'm like, where did she come from?
Well,
I know where.
That's the reason why I moved back, because the family was starting to grow and we were 400 miles away from friends and family in North Carolina versus Ohio. So we shot back up and we did that. So, hey, why don't we get back to the wrestling with you? Tell me more about Japan. Where did you go and who did you wrestle?
Oh, wow. Japan was 4 years in total. And I was all over, but my home promotion at the time was World Women Pro Wrestling Deanna. And at the time, I think they're still there, but just in a different dojo, which is really cool. I'm excited for them. And actually, their ace, Sari, just got picked up by WWE. So that's really cool, too. So I was there in Kawasaki. I went everywhere to Sendai because I worked for Meiko Satomura's organization, Sendai Girls. I worked for Emi Sakura's organization, Gatomu. At the time, Command Bolshoi was in charge of JWP, but they've changed their name to Pure J since then. So I worked with them. But Deanna was my home company. So, I did all the Deanna Dojo shows and all the special things that they did. One time we wrestled at like a racetrack, but it was like a bike racetrack, and we wrestled at like a horse racetrack. The anniversary shows were always at Korakuen, which was really amazing to actually be in Korakuen Hall. It's such a historic building over there. But yeah, and then I worked with Shigusa Nagayo's organization, Marvelous. So that was my last tour there, was with them. And I feel very fortunate because I was part of the last group of people that went for such an extended amount of time. A lot of people are only going for maybe 3 months, at a time now. So it was really cool to be able to do that. And the money was considerably better than stateside. But, I love Japan. I love being able to travel and see. It's a beautiful country. The food's amazing. The training was intense and some of the, hardest training I've ever had, but it was incredible. I got to work with Manami Toyota before she retired, so I feel very grateful. Aja Kong, Ayako Hamada, Chihiro Hashimoto, Meiko Satomura. Like, I got to work with all these amazing people. Nanai Takahashi. I got to do some intergender wrestling, which was really cool. I worked for Reina, which was another organization over there. So I got to have a really well-rounded experience working with all these different organizations. And one thing I think that I really enjoy most is just how professional everything's run. It's organized. The show starts on time. We've been at plenty of indie shows down in Charlotte, or no offense to Johnny Lightning, but it was between 7 and 7:30 when the show would get started. So I loved how Japan was.
I'll give Johnny Lightning credit because always something happened. Something always happened. It was like, what's that?
It was always something going on. I felt kind of bad because it was like always something chaotic would happen at his shows,
I'm just like, oh man, that just the story just hit me. Did I ever tell you the story when I first worked for him? And he all right, I'll tell you. This is one because I don't know if you met me then or not. I was trying to remember what year it was. I think it was 2012. This is when I first met Bam, Human Predator.
Okay.
Mike Sharp.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I couldn't understand a word he said. How can you forget? It's just like, what the hell did he just say?
Yeah, because talk like Boomhauer.
Yeah. Yeah. He still sends me stuff on Facebook. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
And but anyway, he even said this, like, this made no sense. I went down there and I guess Cue Ball got me on the show. So I was going to do an opening match, man. I was working the opening match. They just kind of was like, going to take a look at me. And they kind of knew my name, but they never met me. They never seen me. Well, I came in and I was going against some guy named Jefferson Early. I think. I don't know if you know who he is or not. He's a good kid. Don't get me wrong. But he did not, him next to me, him going over me did not make sense. Okay. Because he didn't look athletic and he was half my size. He was kind of, I mean, I would just be honest. He didn't look athletic. He was half my size. So I came up to him and said, "Hey man, it's good to see you. Are we working each other?" And he's like, yeah, we're working each other. I said, "Okay, well, what do they want for a finish?" He goes, "I'm going over on you." I'm like, "Okay." I said, "Really? Okay." I was kind of surprised to hear that, because I thought I was being told something else. Like as I was coming down, I was going to get this big push with this company. Wow. and it's just, so I said, "Okay." I knew across the hall was where Johnny Light and Jason was at, Jason Morgan. I knew they were across the hall. So I took off my shirt, hung it up in the locker, said, "I'll be right back." I walked across the hall with no shirt on, knocked on the door, introduced myself, and said, "I'm right over here if you need me. Nice to meet you." Walked back. 10 minutes later, I got called back in. They had a meeting. We had to change the match. And I put them over, but I did it in a different way than they wanted to. I did it for it made sense. So let's do it to make sense. And I was the heel. And then I guess it was a benefit show. I want to say it was Carolina Beach or Hampstead. And it was a benefit show for a girl that was dying of cancer. And I was the first match. And she was in a wheelchair. And she was sitting ringside. Before the match started, before the first match of the show, I was the only one on the show that went over. And I did this. And I bowed to her before the match, and then I went in the ring, and then I did my whole heel spiel, and I was the only one on the show that did that.
Yeah,
it was interesting. It was just interesting that happened. So that kind of doing that put me in with him, and that got me. The NWA got in there, and that's where it all kind of took off. But sometimes you take the opportunity to seize the moment. But yeah, that was the funny thing. I took off my shirt and walked across the hall. I'm like, really? Is this what you want to do? I didn't complain. That was my subtlety of doing it. It's like, all right.
Yeah.
And they realized, this doesn't make sense.
There are a lot of places that I'm glad that I work for now that I don't have to worry about having that conversation, because it doesn't matter who wins or loses, but it's going to make sense, and that's the whole thing. Got to make sense. So
that's why with the intergender stuff, you can do it, but you have to make sense, because they were doing that long before. They did it with China, but the way they made sense versus, I'm not going to see a 120-pound woman body slam a 250-pound guy, because he's letting her do it. You know what I mean? He's letting her, suplexing him, doing all this other stuff. Thank you for not ball flexing me. I appreciate that. Training. I was like, I didn't even know what it was. I was like, what the hell? What ball flex? What are you talking about? No, I'm not doing it. I was like, no. And you showed me on the phone, and I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. So
I wanted to try it out.
But you're not doing it to me, no.
I didn't actually end up doing it to anyone. It wasn't really in my wheelhouse. So
no, there's things I don't do either. There's things that are not in my wheelhouse. So let me just kind of ask you this, just let me know which one. Because I know one of the things that you were kind of struggling with when I was trying to help you out and get matches was being a female competitor. Do you think that's more of a uphill climb for you versus being a male competitor? Because there's not as many women as there are men, so there's less people for you to work with. What do you think?
I mean, I think there are differences to both. I have different challenges than the boys have. My career has not been very, I'm not going to say it's been easy, but it hasn't been what it could have been, based on where professional wrestling has come in terms of women. The experiences that Lily Thomas and Sweet Georgia Brown had when they were wrestling are not anything close to what I've had to deal with. But at the same time, I'm really aware that, the challenges that people present sometimes would not be there if I was not a woman. Being in the Carolinas before there really was a big surge in women, that was challenging, because all you're doing is wrestling the boys. And, when you're wrestling the boys, that's different from when you're wrestling a 110-pound woman. So you really have to adjust your style and adjust what you're doing and adjust your storytelling, because when you're going from intergender to same gender, the story changes. So I think that it has been, everybody's story in wrestling is some sort of uphill climb. You know, even second generations or people who seem like they have it all at WWE, we don't know the struggles that they have behind the scenes and the things that they have to deal with, you know? So I think that in terms of a challenge, yeah, I've had a challenging road. Has it been because I'm a woman? Partly, but it's also been because I've taken the attitude that I am a competitor. It doesn't matter if I'm a woman or not. Like, I'm an athlete, I'm a competitor. This is my job. And so you're going to treat that with respect. And just because I'm a woman, that doesn't necessarily mean anything one way or the other. I would like to come into a harassment-free workplace where we're professional, we get the job done, we entertain people, we tell great stories, and then we all are able to go home, you know? So I think that
in a perfect world.
Right. In a perfect world, that's what would actually happen. And I think that the challenges and the adversity I've met in that has just been bad business people, not necessarily bad men or bad women, just bad business people, you know, because if you really do care about wrestling and you're really trying to create a product for people to consume and enjoy so that they, you know, can suspend their disbelief and lose themselves in the stories that we tell for however long the show is, then you're going to put your customer first. And the things you're going to do are going to put wrestling first. You're not going to be skirting pay. You know, you're not going to have duct tape guardrails. You're not going to be using your food stamps to pay for concessions. You know, you're going to be doing things the right way.
I know who you're talking about. I heard about that. Wow, I can't wait to be off camera with you to hear about that other story. She couldn't kick out.
Like, I just, oh gosh. And the worst part, Lou, is because there were no women around when I was coming up, I really tried to be that approachable woman because I'm becoming a veteran in the eyes of some of these girls who are coming up after me. So I want to be a good example. You know, I want to be approachable. If you want to be a part of the business, then I want to be that good part that you remember that gave you a hand up. Because there were some that I reached out to and they were straight up not nice. And they were, you know, real see you next Tuesday on a Wednesday, if you catch my drift. Okay. So I don't want to be that. Then you run into girls who won't kick out and then make it seem like it's your fault. And you're like,
yeah.
What? Okay. Well, you guys wanted heel Roni. You got her.
Oh. Oh, yeah. Hey, you've seen heel Lou. You've seen heel Lou, absolutely.
Try not to pull it out, but sometimes they pull it out of you. You know what I mean?
Maybe I get off. Maybe I get angry too easily. I don't know. I remember you were doing a show, and we're not going to say who you were hearing people talk about me, and you told me about it, and you were just like, you're like, really? I'm trying to remember what it was.
Because everyone always acted like you were so intense for trying to protect the business. And I'm like, did y'all say this to Gotch? Did y'all say this to Bockwinkel? Did y'all say this to Fez? Like, were y'all talking this shit when you were actually back in the day? No, because you would have got popped in the face. That's why you're saying it off to the side and not to somebody's face, because you don't really care about the business. You're just out here trying to act like you are a superhero wrestler so that you can have 4 ring rats and then spend half your food stamps on them. Don't get me started, Lou, okay? Because like, it's so frustrating because I'm like, you are liars, because if you care about something, you don't treat it badly. And wrestling is such an amazing sport, and it's such an amazing living art. This is one of the very few things that you learn a lockup, you're learning the same move that they did way back in the day. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's something that gets passed down. That's a really cool thing. And people just get into it so about themselves or about trying to get play or, you know, trying to get over. And if you're good, that stuff will happen. If you work hard, that will happen. There's a place for the business, but sometimes your place isn't the spotlight, and that is also okay. It's just too many people who don't really think in those terms. For some reason have got a good foothold for a time there. And I honestly think that everybody being home and coronavirus resetting things is really going to reset wrestling, because there are going to be people who were not going to be able to come back, you know, because they were already hanging on by a thread and putting out a half-assed product. So they're not going to be able to sustain that once we're able to do this again. And that's a good thing to me, you know.
It's a reset. I look at it as a reset. I'm thinking too. I've been hearing these rumors about WWE selling to Disney, and I don't believe it.
I keep seeing that too. What is that? Is that for real?
You hear like somebody sold this many stock options and this and that, So I'll tell you what. After what Disney did to Star Wars, if they had owned WWE, they'll kill it. They would absolutely kill it.
I don't think that would be good.
No, that would be the ultimate reset button for the business, because then you'd see other companies. Yeah, that would be the ultimate reset button. Because the problem is, the people that I grew up watching different styles from different places. Like I would watch the Crockett, I'd watch the WWE, and then maybe I'd catch the stuff from Texas and stuff from Vern on the AWA. So I'm watching 4 different styles and 4 different programs, seeing how I was a kid, but I didn't understand it then. But now as I've grown up and I got trained, I was in the business, I kind of saw what they were doing. And that's what it was. Now they're just seeing, this is it. This is it. This is the product. It's WWE. And it's like, really? So it's just having one company really hurt the business, one viable company, I should say, because, it hurt the business. I'm hoping AEW will do that, but I don't know. I mean,
you been watching Power at all?
The NWA Power? I love it.
Yeah.
Love it. I love it. Yeah, I've been watching it. I've been keeping up. Yeah, I was going to ask you that. Have you ever wrestled Thunder Rosa?
No. Yes, actually, I was in a triple threat with her and the Great Cheyenne up in Indiana a couple years ago. Yeah, she's really cool. She's super good.
I was thinking about reaching out to her, see if she'll do my podcast, because I know she Skypes and everything, just to see if she would. She's in San Antonio, so we're on different time zones. But she's probably sitting around. She that would be the time to get people, because everybody's at home.
Oh yeah. And, her and her husband ran a promotion for a while, so it would be interesting to get her perspective on, being a woman running a promotion in Texas, because that's such a historic area.
Her partner in Twisted Sisters is from Cleveland.
Holly did, yeah. Love her. Love Holly.
Well, it was interesting. I was on Twitter and I saw a picture of Thunder Rosa and Holly, and they're wearing football jerseys and they have their paint on. The paint is, if you understand what Thunder Rosa's doing, it's from the Day of the Dead, the Mexican holiday. So I mean, I knew that. But when I saw that, and I responded to Thunder Rosa, as I said, Thunder Rosa was wearing a Bears jersey, and Holly was wearing a Browns jersey. So I asked, I said, "Is your sister wearing a Browns jersey?" And she went, "Yep." And then you saw this GIF of a guy from Family Guy going, "You want to fight about it?" And I was like, I thought it was hilarious. I said, "Oh no, I'm from Cleveland too. I'm a Browns fan, and I know better than to hustle with a Latina woman. So I know better than to do that." And she thought it was funny. She's like, "Dog Jack." She thought it was good.
Yeah, she's really, really cool. So, she's a couple years younger than me, but she's worked everywhere. She was on Lucha Underground, so she's had some really cool experiences also. And she was in Japan. They love her in Japan. So yeah, she would definitely be somebody who would be good to talk to, because you definitely need more women.
Girl power. No, and the thing is, well, you notice this, how I am. I don't care if you're a woman or not. If you're training, we're working.
We're working.
I train.
Oh, I know. I honestly feel like you treated me harder than some of the boys, but then I think about it and I was like, that was probably right, because if he had been that hard on some of those boys, they probably would have cried. So
yeah, no, I knew you could take it. Well, let's talk about this too, because a couple months ago, we were messaging each other back and forth. Someone, I was like, "Yeah, I don't think back and look at myself as somebody that really impacted the business that much." And you left me a voice message saying, "Go ahead, tell the audience what you said to me and who you talked to."
I don't remember exactly what I said, but it was all along the lines of, yes, you do, and that you have to not think of yourself in such a small scope, because you do impact others. Because I was working in your old stomping grounds up in PA, and I would come across older guys who were familiar with that wrestling scene, who knew you and who knew of you. And when they found out that you had a hand in training me, that gave me some clout, and people understood that, I was trained by someone who knew what they were doing and that was respected in that area. And this is a completely, you were down in the Carolinas. Well, you had actually moved back. So yes, you had gone back up there, but this all occurred while you were still in the Carolinas. But yeah, like, and Quinn Magnum, who I love. Big shout out to him. Yeah. So when I met Quinn and Paul Atlas, and the Sorg family, like they know you. So
it's like a family? The which family?
The Sorg, Missy and Michael Sorg.
Okay.
And so, they all knew you because I was working for an all-female company out there. I'm no longer working for them, but I will be working with Quinn's company, Fight Underground. So, I'm going to be going back up to that area. So, and I like the PA crowd. I like it's still real to them. So,
it's still real to me, damn it. Did you ever? Did you realize? Did he ever tell you the stories of how much heat I would get when I was up there, being from Cleveland and working that angle?
Yeah. Yes, because he also was doing for Fight Society, which was the organization he used to work for up there, the training. So Friday there would be a Fight Society show. Saturday there would be a female show, and then Sunday would be training for Fight Society school, and then for like tots, like they had youth training, wrestling training. And so I, of course, would be too tired to make it to Fight Society training, but I would come and help out with the youth training. And a couple times after, we were just, hanging out and talk about the kids and stuff. And he would do drills with them to get heat. And so afterwards, when we would be talking, he would tell me, about the different people who were very good in the area. And your name did come up a few times, but I just remember thinking it was really cool how connected, everybody is, and nobody is in the same space anymore, Yeah,
it's interesting because I went to, I didn't realize it until I was in an airport in Nashville, Tennessee, and some guy came up to me and said, "You're a wrestler, right? You're Lou Marconi, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, how do you know?" I mean, I wasn't even. I mean, I'm just in street clothes. I have my bag. I'm just everything. Like, yeah, how you doing? He goes, "I used to watch you in Pittsburgh all the time." I was like, "Wow." I mean, that was a long time ago. I was like, "Yeah."
wow.
Well, we were on TV in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
I can't remember who I was talking to about that. I think it was Quinn. We were on TV in Pittsburgh and Cue Ball too. Cue Ball was out because that's how I met Cue Ball because he drove up from Virginia to Pittsburgh. And that's when we met back in '98. And we were on TV. So if we go out afterwards, we could go to a bar, we go to a restaurant. People knew who we were.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. And the heels went out with the heels and the faces went out with the faces. Like nobody, you know what I mean? We weren't seen together. We went to different places. We weren't all together. That was still back then. But Cue Ball and I were always the heels on the show, so we were always together. So,
yeah.
We didn't work each other for the longest time, so it was pretty good. But yeah. So that kind of was like, oh, I guess maybe I shouldn't, because there's so many people that have gotten into the business that come and gone and done so many different things. It's just like, because there's
when you leave a mark, and the things that you passed on, the people that you've trained, the heat that you've gotten, that touches people's lives. What we do leaves an imprint. And so everything that you've done, especially when it comes to training, has been in some way paid forward, whether it's been through a match or protecting someone or having to shoot on someone a little, or, telling the truth or protecting the business, or, just being a good person, because you taught me a lot of life lessons too while we were on the road, just about being an adult and honoring your responsibilities and, taking things seriously. And those are things that I, value and appreciate being taught along the way. So, it's always an imprint that you make, which is why I was saying earlier, it's important to be that good vet for others. And you definitely were.
I'm glad. Thank you for hearing. I'm glad you heard that. Well, the other thing too, I would always say this is, with me, what you see is what you get. I don't hide things. And even though I'm very good at working in the ring and I'm not a liar. I don't do that. I can't. That's just not my nature. And, when I say I'm going to be there, I'm there. Like if you tell me like, we're going to get together, we're going to train, I'll pick you up at 2:00. I'm there at 2:00. Right. I'm even there early most of the time.
Yep.
And I'm there. And that's it. If there's anything going on, I let you know. Hey, I'm going to be late. I got car broke down, whatever happened. That's how I do it. So that to me was how it was. And I remember the one piece of advice that you were surprised about, and you even noticed that it was right, was just something. It was a lot of little things that I was very emphasis on. And I was telling one of these big guys, it was a big guy, was just starting out at dance school, and he was like 6'3", 6'4", 280 pounds. He's a big dude. And I told him, I said, you go straight in the ring, and then you go straight out after the match. You go straight in the ring and straight out. You don't walk around the ring. Don't. The guy your size to do that. And he was kind of surprised when I said that. And you told him, yeah, he told me this, and I got a bigger reaction. Because if you ever notice when you go to a play, the actors don't come out and mingle with the audience. They stay by the stages. That's it. That's how it is. That's why sometimes I even like the shows when there's a ramp and you're a little bit higher because you look a little bit bigger. So it takes away from the mystique of the character, I think. Plus, there's an angle that I did, and I think you were surprised when I did that. I think it was in Carolina Beach. Mm-hmm. Where I was wrestling Monahan.
Yep.
We did a storyline where my friend got carried off, and he was responsible for it. So would it have made sense if I would have walked out there with my music playing and just hit the hands of all the fans and walked in and kind of just worked the match? Or if I hit the ropes and I hit the ring, drop the belt, run to that ring like I am going to beat his ass. What did I do? What was the reaction?
And they lost it. Yeah.
What's that?
They lost it. Yeah.
Yeah, they popped. They went ape shit. Like, yeah, get them. They bought it. They believed it because it made sense. I don't think Phil knew I was going to do that.
No, that was also good because it was a part of it just added to the story,
Oh, I think he even joked about it later to Johnny Lightning. He says, man, you tell Lou to bring the heat, he brings it. But it's like, that's the reality of it. And that's, and I remember the longest time, even on Facebook, we weren't seen together. People believed on social media that Phil and I hated each other.
Yeah.
I think we were nominated for Feud of the Year. It got killed. We could have done Feud of the Year if we would have done the blown off we were supposed to, but there was just politics that got in the way of it. I hate to say it, but I'm not going to go into the details. But it's just lot of little things that I emphasize when I train. Just little stuff that can make things look a lot better. Remember how I was when you do something, you have the hold, you have it. You don't kind of just have it. You have it, and then when you do a small package, you lock your legs. Looks like you got them. Can't get out. Your legs are open. It looks like shit. So that's just little things like that. So, but yeah, that's just the things that I kind of emphasized on. With you, the thing I always liked was that, people kind of said this to you, that you kind of almost worked like a guy at one time. Isn't that true? And you had to adjust. Yeah. Because the way, was it me and CW that did that, and Willie that trained you that way?
Yeah. I think what people were really saying was that you don't work like a female or a male. You work like a wrestler, but people don't know how to really say that because that's how I was trained. None of you guys treated me any differently. And it wasn't just because when you're in the ring, it's, you're in the ring and you're choosing to be there to learn. It was because I presented myself as I am trying to learn to be a competitor. I'm trying to learn to be an actual athlete. And I don't think that my gender needs to have anything to do with that. And so everybody was kind of of the same understanding of we're here to learn, we're here to work, let's do that. And I think in some ways that translated into more of a aggressive and intense style that sometimes people equate with being masculine or male. But I've seen some pretty ferocious and aggressive females, in the wild and in wrestling. So, I think a real testament of just being immersed in an environment full of old school guys who didn't know any other way but to be, which was, intense and focused, determined, strong, methodical, very precise in teaching and execution. So I got to that. And it was always girls though who were like kind of frou-frou-y, not like in a bad way. Because I know You need Gail Kim and you need Kelly Kelly. You know what I mean? You need everyone. But I always noticed that it was the more frou-frou girls who always had something to say about the way I worked. And then I'll work with girls like Dementia DeRose, who, you know, we know it's going to be a slugfest because we can take it, or Savannah Evans, you know, or Desi Lattimore, or, you know, like, I just feel really fortunate to have worked with some bring that same, you know, level of intensity. You know, and thanks to you, I've been able to surprise some guys with my intensity too, which is always fun. So,
yeah. Well, it's people that don't know me, or what they do know me, that intensity's always been there with me. I've always been like, you know, that's just the way I am. Outside of the ring or outside of wrestling, never so. Not really. I mean, the interesting part is that when I got trained by Charlie Fulton, he wasn't like that. But when you saw him get mad, or when you saw him get intense, you're like, whoa, because that was uncharacteristic of Charlie. In the ring, he's like that, but outside, very soft spoken and very modest. His way of weeding people out was the ring, because the ring was like concrete. It was that hard, and the ropes just sagged. And his philosophy was, if you can work in this ring, you can work in anywhere, any ring. And my first 6 weeks, almost to 2 months, probably more like 6 weeks, I thought that's how all the rings were. This is a hard ring. Okay, this is it. This is the way it is. I didn't know any different. And until Charlie told me, he smartened me up, and he said, no, that ring's extra hard for a reason. That's just for you to learn to train it. So, because once you get into a normal ring, it's going to be a lot easier for you. I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Okay. And I was like, oh, because I remember there was times I was getting out of my car and I'm like, oh God, I'm just trying to get out. And it was a 2-hour drive after training. So yeah, but that was his way. Because I've seen, the other thing too is, it took me a while to earn the respect of people in the business or people at the school until I was there for a while, because you see guys come and go, and that's why.
Right. Yeah.
That's why.
Yeah.
Come and go all the time. So that took a while. And sometimes you have to take control of things and you learn how to do it. Sometimes you don't. I think there's been times in matches that I wish I took more control when I didn't, but I had to be nice. And I think you were at one of them too. It was in Atlanta, when I could have really done some damage to somebody, but I didn't do it. You remember that?
Where you were wrestling that guy and there was a board loose in the ring?
Maybe. I'm trying to remember that. Remember we had that 6-hour drive back from Atlanta? It was me, you.
Yeah, that was the same show. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was just, I barely talked. I was just stewing the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was defending my national belt against this guy, and it was just...
Who was not as professional as he needed to be.
Yeah. Well, I do remember this. Beforehand, I took the advice of Rob Conway, great guy. He was a world champion at the time. Before he went to a territory to defend his belt, he would Google or YouTube search that wrestler and watch them. I couldn't find anything of him. So that was a red flag.
Right.
It's a red flag. So he would do that, so that way he'd come in prepared, knowing, because I did that when I defended the belt against Jeremiah Plunkett in Tennessee, who I could have a match with that guy in my sleep. He had that big black glove on his right hand. So the whole story we told was, he hits me with that, it's over. So I avoided that as much as possible. So that was it. That was the story. Yeah. So but that was Jeremiah Plunkett. He was really good. I could have a match with him anytime. My guy, him, with this match in Atlanta, you saw that. But that's what I said. I might have said something later, like, if people don't think I can control my temper, what was that in there? Because I had to. I had to, because I was the national champion. I couldn't just go crazy. I had to be cool and calm about it and just walk it. But in the old days, it would have been a different story. So
much different. Yeah.
Yeah. So is there anything that you're going to, I mean, how much longer do you see yourself doing this? Is there anything that you want to still try to do in this business?
I mean, I want to do this as long as I can. I love wrestling. My goals and my dreams are shifting. a bit in terms of where I want to travel and what I want to do in terms of length of time. But as long as my body's going to allow me to wrestle, I'm going to keep wrestling.
Yeah.
So, it's more about my body, which I'm learning as I've gotten older to listen to and to make better bump decisions about and health decisions, just so that I have a body, later. But yeah, I'm same as before. I'm riding it till the wheels roll off. So, my goal one day, once all this pandemic business is settled down, is to get back to traveling. I just love being able to see the world and to see wrestling through the eyes of people in different countries and how they approach it and teach it and love it, So
yeah,
I'm looking forward to doing that as soon as things open back up. So,
knocking on wood, I hope this ends sooner rather than later, and I think it's a safe way to do it. I think there's a balance to it, because there's people on one side that's extreme thinking it's all a conspiracy, other people thinking we have to stay in our homes forever. Like, there's got to be an in between.
Right.
I mean,
there has
to, because it's not, either one's not true. Neither one's not sustainable. So I think there's an in between, saying, okay, we got to get back to work, but we have to do it safe and be smart about it, because we can't expect the government to send us checks every month, because it's not going to happen. I mean, they only have so much money to dole out, and we have to function as a society, and we can't just sit in our houses all day. So like I said, even when it comes to the sports and everything else, I'm actually okay with everything the way, because I'm working from home. I'm lucky to be able to do that and do my job from home. And my wife was able to still work too. So we were very fortunate to have that. However, the girls not being able to, they do Zoom with their preschool teacher. So it's just kind of like, I think they need to get that experience of going back to school. And I'll tell you, you ever want to have an onslaught of germs put on you, have a child go to preschool. What they bring home, just the whole house got sick. I mean, but however, the next year, our immune systems were so much stronger. It wasn't as bad. Yeah, it's just your immune system gets better, and so does they, because so does there, because you got to understand, like, kids put stuff in their mouth, they do this, they do that. They're building up an immune system. They're disgusting creatures. I will admit to that. That's the thing. Being a dad did not prepare me for.
Yeah.
Like, what do you?
I'm working in preschool, Lou. I know how gross they are. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, oh wow. So, but
they love to put things in their mouths and their noses. I don't know why.
Oh yeah.
Don't know why.
Actually, it was kind of funny when our second one was born. And I'm not going to tell the whole story, but I told the joke, and my wife was so mad at me for doing it. It wasn't too bad. It was just, she was numbed from the waist down. She had the epidural, and she was born and everything was great. I kind of got a little bit emotional, and they said, "Oh, is this your first?" And my wife said, "It's our second." And I went, "It's the second one that I know about." I said, the whole room laughed, and she said, "You used that joke last time." But the whole room thought it was funny. It's the second one that I'm aware of. So
I miss you guys.
I do. I miss you too, Ronnie. I used to have fun. I do. There's times I do miss wrestling. Absolutely. But if I was on the road and wrestling every week, because I could make a few phone calls and I'd be working every weekend. I'd be wrestling every weekend. If I did that, I would be missing them so much. I would just it would be breaking my heart. Maybe as they get older, and I'll be in my 50s. I always thought it'd be cool, because I won belts in my 20s, my 30s, and my 40s. Why not wait till after I turn 50? And I win another one after I do whatever else I'm going to do. So I'm doing the podcast now. I love doing this, and maybe you do your own podcast, and you could do, you never know where life's going to take you.
I'm doing like little story times, so little videos. I'm going to do them I think I'm going to do them every 2 months, but it's just little things that have happened throughout my career. It's not super long, but I've had some interesting experiences. But I don't think I'm a podcaster. I like being guests, but
That's great. Well, it's cool. No, it's cool because
I love it. So I like the people that you talk to, and I like that it's familiar.
Yeah, I was just doing this because it's called the Stupid. I might be expanding out not just to wrestling people, because I've reached out to other people outside of wrestling that have influenced me, like my high school history teacher. I emailed them, and I'd like to have,
Nice.
yeah, because well, one of the things, because he's on Facebook, and I'll put up a video about something. I'll say, hey, what's your opinion on this? And it was one that was about what, like the Vietnam War and how it ended.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, there was a peace. There was a victory in Vietnam Day. There was a peace in '73 where there was a North Vietnam and a South Vietnam, kind of like how North and South Korea are today. Watergate happened. President Nixon was not impeached, but he resigned from office in disgrace. Joe Ford became president. The North Vietnamese started breaking the treaty and encroaching on the South Vietnamese, and they were testing the new president. Well, a new Congress was elected with a lot of left wing Democrats at the time. This was in the late. This was in the '70s. This was like I was little. I mean, I was 2 years old when this happened, so there's no way I would know about this. But he pleaded that as North Vietnamese aggression is coming down, we need to help them. We need to get that victory back. And the Congress wouldn't do it. So there was a huge evacuation. North Vietnam took over. That was the fall of Saigon in '75. So if we would have just kept our promise in that peace accord to the South Vietnamese, the state to defend them, we probably would have been able to win. But the way he phrased it and he talked about it was that, by the time that we got to that point, they just washed their hands of it. They just didn't want any part of it anymore. And that was that after what we already went through. So
Yeah.
there, technically it was still a victory, but we just didn't keep the peace. We won it. We just didn't keep it at that point. That's when a lot of massacres happened and a lot of things have happened since then. However, I'm kind of glossing over how it went, but he was a guy. I almost became a history teacher at one time. I don't know if anybody knew that or not. Yeah, I almost did. It's more of a hobby for me now, and that's why it's funny when people will argue with me on Facebook about history. They're probably surprised at what I do know, and of course I'll pull up and they're like, "Oh, he actually knows what he's talking about." Yeah, like because one guy was saying, "Oh yeah, well the Constitution. Well, what's the Fourth Amendment?" I said, "Fourth Amendment's illegal search and seizure and right to privacy." "Oh yeah, what about the Third Amendment?" I said, "Well, the Third Amendment is not being made to quarter U.S. soldiers in wartime or peacetime." It's just like, because I'm a pro Second Amendment. I'm very pro Second Amendment. I am. Mm-hmm. Because back in the day with wrestlers, and even Jim Cornette talks about this. He's a pretty far left Democrat. The old days, the heels were armed wrestlers because kayfabe was king. They had, like, Harley Race carried a gun. Blackjack Mullen carried a gun. Killer Carl Cox carried a gun. These guys did that. Dick Murdoch was crazy. He carried a gun. Or so was David Schultz. David Schultz was the same way. But that's just the way it was. So that's how it worked. But no, I appreciate you coming on the podcast. I love it. Before we wrap this thing up, I would really, honestly, I always like to do this. Like, what for any female wrestler who wants to get into the business, or anybody, but I think female wrestlers, I wanted to get a female perspective on this because I wasn't extra hard on you, just so you know. If I was extra hard on you, it's probably because I thought you had the most potential. It wasn't had to do with you being female, okay? Because I saw you succeeding. I helped you. I mean, great. Chris helped you. Chili helped you. So, what would be the best advice you can give to them?
Oh. Know your history, learn where you've come from. It's really important to understand how, especially as a woman, we fit into the tapestry of professional wrestling. And it's not just about having a great look or being able to hold your own in the ring, but it's also about honoring the past and knowing what was done to get to where we are. There was a lot of sacrifices that were made for wrestling, because just like we're living through this pandemic, there were a lot of crazy things that happened in the world at the same time that wrestling was still going on. And so I think we get so short-sighted in thinking of just what's happening right here and right now and where I've got to go, that we forget to look to the past and see what wrestling has endured and others have endured to kind of help create our own footfalls to continue to the future. So, your history, always get trained professionally. And especially for younger girls, be comfortable being you. There's definitely a lot of people telling you you've got to look a certain way or be a certain way to be successful. But as we know, the world is full of beautiful, diverse people who can do amazing things, and whatever feels comfortable for you, probably there's somebody out there who wants to connect with that and see that on TV or on YouTube or whatever. So don't be afraid to, show who you are if you're going to pursue this. So
yeah, that's great advice. And I will add to that, saying that when they talk about diversity, that professional wrestling has always been the most diverse business. If you think about it, all over the world, people have read wrestlers and traveled, and I've been in the ring with so many different people with different backgrounds, different beliefs, that I entrusted them with my health, and they entrusted me with their health and well-being, and that's the way it's supposed to be. So and that's why we're a part of a. I say brotherhood. It sounds silly, but you're a part of this too. But we're part of a club. There's a brotherhood and a sisterhood that's a part of it, and there's reasons for the way things are, and the people that don't respect it are the ones that burn me up the most. So anything that you want to plug, Ronnie, anything you want to let people know listening, like where do they click on, where do they find you, what's going on? Plug it.
Yes. So you can always find me on Twitter at Glitterlicious, on Instagram at GlitterliciousBangBang, spelled how it sounds. I don't have a Patreon yet, but you can start following me, or material yet, but you can start following me on Patreon at Roni Nicole, Snapchat Roni Nicole R, for booking, appearances, and inquiries, RoniNicoleR@gmail.com. And thank you so much for having me, Lou. I really appreciate you and all you've taught me, and for having me on the show today.
Yeah, we're about to stop this recording. Hey, everybody that listens to my podcast, it takes the time, please like and share it. I really appreciate it. Feel free to subscribe as well. Thank you very much. This is something that I really started doing a while ago, and I'm really glad that I started doing it. And it's not about me. It's about everybody that wants to listen and hear. If you want to learn, there's so much material out there. And if you choose mine, I greatly appreciate that. Thank you. All right.